If you actually remove all constraints, so money, time, whatever, what do you actually want to do? That you can find some extraordinarily rich people who have just climbed the ladders because that's what they were told to do, but that didn't necessarily make them happier. And I think what most people don't stop to consider is like, okay, if your answer is like, oh, I want to be retired, try to not do anything for 6 months and just lounge around and watch Netflix. It's a really shit life. It's really horrible. Like, as humans, we don't like having nothing to do. We get bored. But, for some people, their thing to do might be gardening. They might tend to a massive, castle and garden, and that's a good life for them. For me, I like stress and risk and thinking and hard problems and this kind of stuff. And so, I run a business, which is, as far as occupations go, like pretty hard. Most people don't stop to consider, like, remove all constraints, bar all restrictions. What do you actually want to do? Don't just go for the most ambitious thing because that's what people told you to do. Making $10 million will not make you any happier if you are not allowed to spend it. So if you're not allowed to spend it, the money in and of itself does not make the difference. That is not the thing that you want. You want the freedom, the status, whatever it is, but it is not the thing. And beyond that, also, I think not enough people think about, like, on the ground level, what do you want to spend your time doing? What does that life look like? Are you on a beach? Or are you in a cold country? Are you traveling all the time? Guess what? Traveling all the time sounds dreamy. It's not that perfect. I say this because I like, over the last 2 years, I have traveled a lot. And, you start kind of living out of a suitcase, and that's not the most comfortable thing. There are certain comforts that you give up. That, like, routine, going to that same coffee shop where they always know you, and the guy knows your order before you even walk in. He knows that you clock like 8 o'clock, like clockwork. You're there every day. Like, you don't get that when you're a nomad, right? Your routine is horrendous. Your friends are all over the place. Like, it's different. You sacrifice a lot, and people don't think about that. And so if you want to design a life that you really, really enjoy, doing stuff that you enjoy is also a huge secret to, like, being productive and just getting more stuff done. Is like, focus on the stuff that you can actually do for a ridiculously long period of time and it doesn't feel like work. That is the stuff that you should spend your time doing because you'll be able to do lots of it. Actually consider, what does that life look like? What does, how do you spend your holidays? How many holidays a year do you have? Where do you go? And the thing is, you don't need the most luxurious things in the world to design a really good life. For example, my backend developer, he's got a type of life that I think, like, he's done a lot of odd jobs before he kind of, like, he started in programming and then he went and tried other stuff. And I think that's one of the most valuable things about him is that he has loads of, like, experience outside of back-end development. He could just out of passion and curiosity. He was a teacher for a while, he traveled to Colombia, whatever, all these things. And he spends pretty much all of his time at home now with his family. He's got 2 kids and he's got a really cool pool, and he built a bar around that pool, and they barbecue on weekends, and it's just, it is like fundamentally a really good life for him, for the stuff that he wants. Most people don't stop and think about, what does that look like for them? And if, like, I think especially young people, because we have social media, like, my generation is full of social media, and you get a lot of stimuli and a lot of, like, oh, you could do this and this and this, and you should get overloaded with opportunities. And so I don't think enough people stop and think. They just go with the default. The default is go to university. So most people go to that. But even for those outside of that, they just default into what? Into, like, launching an e-com product and marketing agency because that's what they were told was cool, or, because it makes money. Like, why do you want the money? What life? How do you want life to look like for you? And you will have a job, some type of job or another. A business owner is still a job. It might be better paid. It might have risks. It might have more stress, whatever it is, but it's still a job at the end of the day. And so you have different kinds of jobs. Guess what? A food critic goes out and eats at cool restaurants at the best in the world, and all they do is criticize the food. That's a job in and of itself. You can be a wine sommelier. You taste wine for a living. Like, these kinds of, people glorify business owners recently, I think, a lot because you get to set your own hours and do your own thing, and it's kind of like glorified as cool life, whatever. It's a life that comes with that kind of job, potentially, right? Depending how you want it. There's also business owners who just go to the office every day and that's it. And it's that there's a lot of variability within business owning, but there's also other jobs. Like, who says that you can't be a head of brand at some company and earn really well and work remote and have the benefits without the stress of, being your own boss and that kind of thing? Like, people don't actually ask themselves, removing all restrictions, what does my life look like? And trust me, it is not linear. That might change, whatever, but I think it's worthwhile to ask yourself every once in a while. And I find myself doing that a lot recently. Like, okay, one of the things I like spending my summer holidays in Europe. I'm European. That's kind of what I grew up doing, but it's an important thing for me. Like, it's something I really, really enjoy. And so I'm going to have as much of that as I can. I don't necessarily enjoy doing the holidays for 3 months, so I'm not going to do that. Like, it's just these things slowly accumulate, and I think if you do not think about them, you just kind of like you go with this like lazy river, and eventually you're somewhere where you didn't want to be.